Hello everyone, this is going to be a very different video than I did last time, namely because I don't have a script. I just have this project file open and a couple of talking points that I want to go over it. But I will be editing it pretty similarly. I just want to focus on this project that I did. For one, I want to plug my own music. This is currently out on my SoundCloud. And I was too lazy to write a script, but I wasn't lazy enough to not make this song. So you can't call me lazy, only I can. So this video, if you haven't read the title or description or seen the thumbnail, is about ambient music. Ambient music is more focused on delivering a certain mood or feeling than delivering like an actual listenable piece of music that stands on its own. It's more meant to accompany something else. However, there are contemporary artists who make ambient music, such as like Aphex Twin. That is the only one I can think of off the top of my head. So yeah, I honestly don't listen to fully ambient music that much. But I do play a lot of games that have ambient soundtracks. Like obviously Minecraft is a huge one. Donkey Kong Country or Mori, which is one of my favorite games of all time, has some amazing ambient tracks. Skyrim, Hollow Knight is technically mostly ambient. Yeah, there's tons. So yeah, now that I've given you some examples and a basic definition of what ambient music is, hopefully you have a kind of idea of it in your head, which will help me to explain some of the concepts I'm going to be talking about theory-wise and production-wise in this video. So let's start off by opening what I started making this track with, which was the chords. Literally all I did to make these was I sat at my keyboard and I played around for a bit. When you're making ambient music, usually you want to think of, the first thing you want to think of is how big you want this song to, how big you want this piece of music to sound. Because the more complex your chords are, generally that is going to push your song a lot. If you work with just triads and make them very spread out and very open, it can still sound big, but it's going to be very kind of direct and simple. If you have these kind of things, this is a G minor 9, right? No, that doesn't look good for me. This is a G minor 13 just without the 11. Wait, this isn't a G minor 13 or a G minor 9 because it has a natural 6. Anyway, I don't know how that happened. And then it goes upper minor third to this B flat major 9, and then it has this passing chord at the end, which is a C7 without the third, so it's like a C7 sus. Yeah, look at me trying to read my own chords, isn't that cute? Anyway, so to explain some of my choices here, right? This minor second in the middle, let me just play it actually. The whole chord progression. So yeah, this minor second in the middle, this is something that I got from just how I voice jazz chords and how I voice big chords in general. If you have a minor second in the middle, for some reason it just sounds really nice. Not if you have it on the top of voicing or on the bottom of voicing, then it sounds crunchy like a minor second normally does. But when you have it surrounded by other notes, for some reason it just sounds nice. And that's a really easy thing you can do, not knowing much theory, not having to understand much about what you're doing. It just sounds nice, and you can add it. So it lets you extend your chords more, it lets you have these more luscious voicings, and it compacts them in a way that doesn't sound too big or too dissonant. So I mentioned in my last video how moving chords by a third sounds weak and sounds like an extension of the chord that it's coming from. And if you look at the notes here, right, you can see exactly why that is. Because this is what did I say it was? It's a G minor 9 with an added natural 6 or natural 13. This is essentially the same chord with a different bass note, and this moved down a whole tone. the voice leading between these two is really nice. And technically, if I just add this in, it's basically the same chord. If I just remove that, it's a one note difference. And the main difference, the main thing that makes these chords feel different is the change in bass note. But because there is so much similarity in the chord tones, it sounds like it's just an extension, or it sounds like an inversion of the same chord. And because this note is on top as well, this D and this E, they sound like melody notes. They don't necessarily sound like chord tones until the main melody comes in, at least. And obviously I'm writing these as part of the harmony anyway. And this is going to get a little bit more off topic. This is again more about how to write chords. If you have like one really nice chord, just see where the top note of that voicing that you're playing takes you. This is exactly how I played it into my keyboard, and then I just played it into my laptop, and then I built from it. So yeah, that is about, actually no, there is one more thing I have to say. This passing chord at the end breaks my own rules a bit. I said last video how moving by a fourth sounds really strong and really complete in most kinds of music. And well, what do you know, this C resolves down to this G by a fourth, and in ambient music that's normally a no-go. It's normally a bit too forceful and a bit too strong for that kind of thing. But for one, don't listen to that. Music is subjective. Do what you like. I like this. I think it sounds good. And it's a passing chord, which means it doesn't have too much presence. It's not really like a strong resolution, and it's a sus chord. It's light. If you don't like that, go away. Next up is this melody that I made. To be perfectly honest with you, I don't really like this melody, but I think it's pretty good for teaching how to write ambient melodies. As you can see here, I'm kind of really pedaling this E, and I would recommend doing that. I would recommend staying around one or a couple of notes when you're writing an ambient melody. And I would recommend not going too crazy with what notes you're playing during the melody. I do that later, just because I thought it was fun. And again, music is subjective. Do what you like, do what you think sounds good. Other than if it's not what your client wants. This is a channel for media composers. If your client doesn't like something, cut it out. Don't try to keep it. Anyway, this is literally just a G major pentatonic, as you can see. So 1, 2, 4, 6. Those are the scale degrees of that pentatonic that I was using there. This lead-in is incredibly simple. Again, it's part of that G major pentatonic. That's in this entire melody. Those are the only notes that I used. They were all from G major pentatonic. In fact, I used all 5 of them, and in some part of it. And this goes more into composition. Pentatonics are your simplest scales for writing melodies. There's no movement to another note in a pentatonic that will sound bad. It can sound cheesy because everyone uses pentatonics, but it will never sound bad, and that's really important. When you're writing ambient melodies, you never want them to sound too, like, I guess the word I would use here is like standoffish, you know. You don't want it to kind of confront your listener. You just want it to run along your chords. You want it to be smooth, and you want it to just direct everything. Which is why, for one, there is so much space between all of these notes, because this track is not, like, it's not driving, it's not fast paced, there's no kind of there's no like driving 16th note pulse that some ambient tracks have, which is really cool, by the way. I just didn't do it in this because I wanted to be as ambient as possible, I would say. But yeah, that's why I have a lot of space in between everything, and it's why it kind of has such a set rhythm. Also, this phrase comes exactly when that high G on the chords comes in, this one. So yeah, just don't try to stand out too much when you're writing a main melody for your ambient tracks. Even more so, here is my bass line. This is, so little known fact about me, my main instrument is bass. I am a pretty good bassist. I'm a pretty good jazz bassist as well. And that obviously, coming with the territory, that means I like complicated, funky grooves. I like really over the top, really intricate bass lines. And doing stuff like this, sometimes it does hurt my soul. But it's important to kind of know what to strip back. And I mean, I'll do a future video on bass lines, so I won't go too much into this today. But one thing I really want to draw attention to is the note length, like cut off here. Just because this whole thing is so full on, for like, not full on, just because it's a legato, everything is coming to the start of the next note. This little drop off here very nicely predicts this little fill that leads back into the G. Let me just play it. Oh wait. You can kind of see how that little dropout, it leaves something to be expected. I probably could have played around with that more in the rest of the arrangement, but again, it's an ambient track. I don't want stuff to be dropping out. I don't want it to be too dynamic, basically. Everything in this track is a very consistent volume. There's not much that stands out too much, and that's exactly what I wanted. Now for this little counter melody that I wrote, I find this pretty cool. I will go into how I made the synths in the second half of this video. For now, I want to go exclusively over the composition, and then I'll go into the production. But let me play the counter melody for you. So yeah, this is kind of an anti-counter melody, because it pretty closely follows the contour, well not contour, the rhythm of this melody. It starts here, it has a note here and here, there's a note here, and well, the only time it doesn't kind of match up with the note in this melody is over here. The reason I call it a counter melody is because it occupies a completely different frequency space than the original melody, and I'll go into that a little bit later when I go into the production. But yeah, so the thing with counter melodies in ambient music for me is I just try to make it occupy a completely different place than the original melody, because you don't want too much stuff that conflicts. If you have something that's muddy in ambient music, yeah, you can use that sound to your advantage, and it can be an interesting texture, but you don't want it everywhere, and you don't want stuff to conflict. But what you do want is to fill as much space as possible with as little as possible. So having something really twinkly like this is really helpful for that. Going on further to the last loop of this ambient track, I would say, is this pad right here. It's the most simple thing. It's just 3 notes and they repeat over both chords. And the reason I thought that was pretty important to do is because, like I said with the passing chord thing earlier on that 4 chord, that C7 sus, it makes it sound more like a passing chord rather than an actual functional harmony thing, because this is just carried over from the first and the second chord. So yeah. Then there's this thing. Honestly, I got really bored. I just wanted to have some fun, so I'll just play it. Yeah, so be cautious with doing something like that, because it only really works if it's kind of random. If you have something that's too complicated, that's repetitive, and it goes over and over again, it sounds less like an ambient track. It sounds more like kind of like a jazz ballad melody, but really electronic. So something like this where none of the melody repeats. It's kind of like a solo, but I've just written out. It's written with the philosophy that it's meant to be random. It's meant to kind of drift over these chords. It's not meant to drive any rhythm. It's not meant to drive any motifs. It's just flowing over the chords. And that, if you're going to do something a little bit more complex like this, go with that. Try and make it just flow. Don't try and show off too much. But yeah, that is kind of it for the composition. It's very simple. Honestly, it's not that good. But I enjoyed making it. It was pretty simple. I know I could do better, but this is what I've made. And I kind of just wanted to make it to demonstrate a few points of ambient music writing. I am by no means an expert, composer or producer or anything. I don't get paid. I just do this for fun. But I hope you have learned something compositionally. And if that is all you wanted to learn, you may click off now, because I'm going to start talking about synth design, sound design, production, mixing, and everything else related to ambient music. So I will start in the exact same order that I did the instruments in. This is about as simple as you're going to get for an electric piano sound. It is a free, count 'em, free electric piano sound from Labs. This is one of the greatest plugins you can ever get for free. I can't emphasize enough, it is free. I've been using this for nearly 2 years now. And yeah, it's served me well. It's really, ignore that. It's served me well, it will serve you well. You don't need to buy an electric piano sound. This one sounds great. Just learn how to mix it. And yeah, you'll be fine. Going on to Moon Runes, this is Surge. Surge looks like an alien interface. It's one of the more complicated synths that are free that you can find, but it is one of the best ones by far. I wouldn't learn on this. I would go and learn sound design on Vital, if you're a beginner, and then I would transfer all of those skills onto this. Just learn where all this stuff is, and you'll be fine. Because this is way more useful than Vital. Going on to why I made this one. This is the melody synth, and so I like frog synths. This is definitely a frog synth. It sounds like a frog. If I play this in isolation, that kind of wah sound and the little fuzziness at the top, that is my ideal synth.
I'm going to be completely honest here, I have no idea what the heck I was talking about in this segment. I'm not good at talking about synth design on the spot, so I was just pointing out whatever I saw. And I didn't see much. This first synth sounds froggy because of the FM depth and routing, and the envelope. The fuzzy sound that is also in the synth comes from the second oscillator, which I did quite a lot to customize, but it had an issue of sounding completely different to the first oscillator. For that reason, I had to include the FM routing to glue them together, but it ended up being essential to the sound.
This is the most similar to the original preset of any of them. I just did some FM routing, and I actually don't remember what else. Oh yeah, filters. I did some filter work as well. And that was kind of it. This was just mainly built from a preset. Surge presets are really good. If you don't want to learn how to use the synth, you can stick with the presets, you'll be fine. It is just really helpful to learn how to use the presets, how to use the synth, because if you can customize them a little bit, even just by playing around with it, even if you don't fully know what you're doing, if you can just play around with it a bit and figure out what sounds nice, you'll be flying. You won't need anything else. This counter melody, the twinkly one, this one again from a preset. They were all from presets. One wave. I've got the wave shaper on it to make it sound more compressed. This one also has a lot of resonance on both sides, just because I wanted some of that character. Honestly, a lot of sound design and a lot of synth design to me is just playing around with the knobs and switches until I find something I like. The only parts that you really need to pay attention to on sound design is the envelope, which I've done like a pretty high release on both of these, just because I wanted it to be a very drawn out sound. I was going to put delay on it anyway, and I did put it here, and I also put it, I believe this is it. Yeah, it is route to 3. I should have labeled these, sorry. Yeah, so I've also got quite a lot of delay on here. This is kind of designed to be as drawn out as possible. I've got the tiniest amount of FM routing on it, and yeah, that's kind of it with this. On to the bass. This is one of the more interesting ones. This has a decent amount of FM depth on it because I wanted it to be a bit like fuzzy and squelchy, and you can see that in the amount of resonance I put on it over there. This filter balance is toggled to this LFO just to rotate all the way around every 3 beats. Not 3 beats, every 3 bars. Just because I like these kind of modulating bass sounds in ambient music. It can be really helpful to have to make a louder sounding bass without it being too present. Just by having it go in and out. And I did the same thing on the pad, and I'll show you how I did that when we get to it. So this one has a pretty high attack, because if I turn the attack down, you'll see it just has this horrible sound at the start. Nope, that's not how you do that. Oh yeah, I also put a multi-band on it just to really get out that annoying kind of clicky sound that it had. I don't know where it's gone. I didn't hallucinate it, trust me. And yeah, I got rid of that because it was not what I needed. I needed that kind of a little bit of fuzziness and like roboticism that sound has, like that. And yeah, that's about it for the bass. And now onto the pad, which is what I spent the most time on in terms of the synth design. I'm back on the bass again. So yeah, for this pad, obviously again a decent amount of FM. This one has 2 oscillators again. As you can see, it's squiggly. That's what I'm gonna say it is, because I don't remember. This one, no resonance, just some filters, and I've put the filter balance more towards the bandpass, because this pad was made to kind of occupy that 5th and 6th band, the 4th and 5th band frequency range, because that was completely empty before I added this pad. And I've blended the 2 waves pretty well. The main thing I want to draw your attention to is the LFO. So this is what's making that nice kind of rhythmic effect. It's I don't remember what that kind of LFO is called. It's just like a bunch of random skips along the LFO, and I have it assigned to, I believe, the volume. Nope, I was wrong. Oh, cutoff, right. But yeah, that's what I did that to. This one, again, to kind of emphasize that rhythmic effect, is on the volume and the resonance. This is a square. I know that much. I'm not that bad of a teacher. It had a bit of deform on it, but I removed it because it wasn't clear enough anymore. And then this is just to kind of add more of a sweep. I put it on that resonance. It's for the same reason as the bass. It was a bit too present at first, and I couldn't move the resonance up too high, or it would be too loud and it would be too present. So having this little sweep makes that blend a lot better, and I would recommend doing that. So that is about it for the synths. The final thing we need to cover is the mix. I don't claim to be the best mixing engineer, but I enjoy doing it, and this one was pretty quick, if I remember correctly. So this is the pad. On the pad, which, let me play that again. We can see I've EQ'd out this 6th band a little bit because it was conflicting with the kind of twinkly counter melody thing, which is literally right on the 6th band. And it's got delay on it. This is a great delay plugin, by the way. Check it out if you are a producer, if you work on DAWs. Stereo, stereo widening to get it spread out more. Spreader. And then I have this filter on it, which is, again, going and emphasizing that rhythmic effect, which is kind of the space I wanted this this pad to fill. Then we have the bass, which I put the simplest thing on it. I just put a multi-band compressor, but it was just to stop it from being too subby. I didn't want it to be too bassy, because the thing with ambient music, if it's too bassy, it has too much energy. Obviously, like low frequencies and just bass in general, if it carries so much weight and so much energy that in a track like this, where you want it to be toned down, you want it to be subdued, you need to preserve that. So that is why I have this multi-band compressing this low end but keeping the rest of it. And moving on from that, we have the counter melody. Again, this delay, very nice. I have it reversed on the delay. I have a compressor on it just because this transient was a bit too heavy. And to emphasize that even further, I have a gate on it with a high attack, which is blended slightly, because I wanted to kind of just cut off some of that transient because it was too sharp, which is why I have it blended so it's not like just fading all the way in. But yeah, this is something you can do on anything that has too sharp of a transient. You can put a gate on it with a slow attack, and yeah, it will just cut off the start of that, and you'll be dandy. Moving on to this, which I didn't add anything on, and I don't remember what it is. It's probably the melody. Yeah, it's the melody. I just didn't add anything on it because it came with an EQ anyway. Then we have the keys. I didn't EQ them because honestly, I just didn't. It's an electric piano. I don't really need to, and yeah. It's got a compressor on it because the melody was a completely different volume from the chords, so it needed to be equalized a little bit, and it brought out the chords themselves a little bit more. And it's got its own reverb because I wanted the keys to be super rich, super wide, and that is what I did. And then we have this bus with a saturation plugin. I really like saturation on ambient music, especially if it's electronic. It just brings out a certain character. You really don't have to do it. It's just something I do, and it's something I like. And it's kind of, I don't know, it's a bit of a signature for me when it comes to ambient music. I even put it on drums. It's just something you can do if you want that kind of oldish, it kind of reminds me of Silent Hill in a way, but not that intense, it's just kind of the same vibe of a little bit old and yeah, great description, bro. A little bit worn, yeah, that's the right word, a little bit worn. And yeah, that's why I really like adding saturation on any ambient track and on drums in general. And yeah, I just put a random, like a wide reverb preset on this, and yeah, that is the entire mix. Also, make sure you pan your stuff, make sure it's wide if you're not working with that many instruments, because again, with ambient music, you kind of want to fill as much space as possible with as little as possible, if you want to make something that is wide. If it doesn't call for that, don't do it. And the master is very simple. I just have a little boost here because it was lacking. If I play the song again, you can see it's just way more present here than it is here, other than when those come in, but the volume is pretty balanced anyway, and they only show up for a small moment. And the final thing is this compressor. It's barely doing anything, it's just catching really loud stuff and patterning it down a bit. You want a lot of headroom when you're making ambient stuff, because obviously it's going to go in the background of something. It's not the main focus. That's what I want you to keep in mind with ambient music. It's never the main focus. So yeah, just have a light compressor to catch anything that's a bit too loud. I would even maybe smush this down a little bit more, but yeah, that's not the point. Anyway, that is everything. I Might do a follow-up video to this on ambient, like 90s ambient PlayStation 1 jungle slash D&B. I might do a video on that genre because I mean it's pretty cool, but it's not ambient music. Like the drums in that genre just scream at you over and over again until you pay attention. So yeah, let me know if you want to see a video on that. I have made a decent amount of it in the past. So yeah. Anyway, that is all for this video. Thank you for watching. If you learned something, please subscribe. If you have information of your own, please comment below. If you think that my voice sounds terrible, please comment below. Please dislike the video. And never watch these videos again.